welcome everyone who's here. It's really exciting for us to be talking about this this topic today. I'm Steven. I'm going to be the moderator for today. Quick background on myself. I'm a PhD student at Harvard Business School. I help work on a research program called the Lumiere Research Scholar Program. And I have the pleasure of moderating this panel, which is going to be focused on virtual mentorship. What are the opportunities and the potential challenges with virtual mentorship? I'm going to quickly start off by introducing our panelists today. We have three superstars, I think, true rock stars of the counseling world. I'll start with Namita. So Namita is an alumnus of the University of Oxford. She's a passionate educator who started working in the college counseling space for over a decade ago now. She started her career as a school counselor at B.D. Samani International School, where she not only helped students with the university application process, but also mentored students from grade 8 on effective profile development. She is currently the president of the Red Pen, where she specializes in the Oxford admissions process. As a columnist for Midday and a speaker on over 10 panels this year, Namita offers a study abroad advice to students across the world. She's also very tired from speaking on so many panels. So thank you, Namita, for joining us.
Can the volume be increased?
Thanks, Stephen, for the introduction.
Yes.
Looking forward to speaking to everybody today.
Excellent. And how is my volume? Better? Okay, perfect. Okay.
Better now.
Great. So our next panelist is Sudarshana Shukla. Sudarshana is a career and guidance counselor with over 20 years of experience in her field. She is innovative and always looking to push the bounds of possibility for her students. Presently, she is working as a guidance counselor with Cathedral and John Connon School, Mumbai, and she was recently awarded the 2020 annual IC3 Molly Abraham Lifetime Achievement Award for her work in the education and counseling space. And then finally, we have Shilpa Gupta. Shilpa is many things, as I have learned, but I will share a little bit about what she does today. So Shilpa is a dedicated, enthusiastic, and outgoing or chatty educator who is highly committed to the growth and progress of all students. This has included introducing, developing, and leading the college counseling department. She is currently serving on the executive board of International ACAC as a delegate to NACAC Assembly. She's also been a planning committee member at the IC3 conference, responsible for university outreach, research and content, and social media. With an immense experience of over 17 years, she is currently working as a university counselor at UWC ISAC, Japan.
Thanks for that introduction.
Yes.
I'm sure you could have avoided the chatty.
Yeah, well, it's the truth comes out. The truth comes out. Excellent. So today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. Primarily we'll be thinking about two main areas of virtual mentorship. So the first area is very micro. How do you develop a relationship with someone virtually? How do you build mentoring relationships with someone online? And the second is going to focus on more of the macro. What are the opportunities that could be taken advantage of in a virtual space and a virtual collaborative world? So I want to kick off by starting about the micro, however, and Shilpa, I'll ask you first. So what have you found to be the most difficult part of virtual mentorship, and how have you overcome those difficulties?
Sure. So the challenges or the difficulties that I found, I think most of us were in the same boat, and it was while leading these workshops with students, we realized that most of the students had their cameras off. The interaction level was super low, and as counselors, we definitely don't want that. We definitely want to see that, that sparkling in their eyes, and when there's an idea that clicks to them. And I think that connect was absolutely missing. I felt that student engagement was going low, and the way I handled it is obviously I had to get techie, so I had to really get into learning new interactive tools, and I did learn, and I use tools like Padlet and Peer Deck. So most of my presentations were on Peer Deck, which allows students an option to collaboratively talk about their experiences, have collaborative discussions. So I think even with the cameras off, I was able to engage the students in meaningful discussions. I was able to engage them in self-reflections. I think that worked very well. So because we realized a little later that we cannot expect all of them to have their cameras on because of internet issues. So I had to find a way around that. So we felt even if the cameras were off, but I was getting to see their messages, that really worked well for me. The other thing that worked very well was having these smaller breakout rooms where I would basically collect students based on their interests. And this year I thought that I was doing lesser presentations and I made students do more presentations. So I would tell the students in smaller breakout rooms to talk about UK as a destination. I would ask students to create a presentation on what are the study abroad opportunities at this university. So I realized that switching this whole thing about from me presenting to them presenting, they also got very involved. So I think those are some tricks and tips that really helped with me.
Yeah, and I'm curious to pass that. I think you mentioned, Shilpa, about the difficulties of the connection process where a student may not have their camera on and you're trying to gauge their reaction and you're trying to figure out, okay, am I saying something that's actually working or not? And I'm curious that connection, how do you address that issue? Because as a mentor, and I think as many counselors, your role is to act as this mentor and develop these mentoring relationships. How do you do that, and how do you help develop people? Namita, I want to pass to you for this. How do you help develop that ability to develop online connections quickly between a mentor and a student?
That's a great question, Stephen. So I think we have to look beyond our role as a university guidance counselor, especially in the online world. We first have to build a connect with the student, and then we can kind of get into the details of where am I applying and how do I apply and go about this process. It's really about making a connect first. So if you're meeting your mentee for the first time, play a game like 2 truths and a lie, or talk to them about something that they're interested in. It could be a student interested in international relations about something that's happening in the news, or if you know that a student has a passion for pets, like about dogs or something that they're interested in, and then you can move on to the college counseling piece. I also feel that whenever college counseling is very complicated, there's a lot of research involved. It's important to ask the student if they know how to do what you're asking them to do. Like, I'll give you one example, like researching a college. It might seem easy. You just kind of get onto the university website and start looking at courses, but it's really not as easy. It's really not as simple as that. I mean, university websites are very sanitized. How do you really find out whether it's going to be a good fit for you, whether you want to attend that? So maybe show them how to do that. Okay, why don't we research a couple of colleges together? And then you can, so that they understand how to do it and it's less daunting. The other thing that I think is important is to set deadlines together. Look, I like to look, college applications is almost like doing an extra subject in school. There's so much going on, whether you're doing the IB, if you're an IB student, I always say applying to college is like a 7th subject. It's such an overwhelming process. So you need to work with them, let them set the deadlines with you. And then the process will be a lot smoother. And I think, because there's so many changes that have happened in the last 18 months with the COVID and online world, we really have to be empathetic and understand when certain deadlines are not met. Of course, you need to be firm. You can't have them miss the college deadline application dates, but at the same time, understand that there's so much on their plate and try and give them deadlines that are a little flexible sometimes because there's a lot else going on.
Got it. Namita, it sounds like for you, there's a lot of more showing than telling that you're doing,
Yeah.
that you're really, making sure that you're walking the student through the process. And I think there's something very specific, which I think a lot about now because a lot of students are asking me for letters of rec. And I'm curious because when I think of letter of rec, it's often based on this relationship you developed with someone. And certainly the way that we develop relationships has changed as we have entered into this virtual world. Spoken a lot about that over the past few days. And I'm curious, Sudarshana, from you, have you changed how you think about letters of recommendation in terms of how they're written or how you encourage teachers to write them as you've experienced virtual school for the past year?
Absolutely.
So there's one second. I think there's a message in the chat about the volume. Just if that can, volume
absolutely.
is very low. That's what everyone's saying.
Absolutely. I can both speak louder. The question I just asked was on the letter of recommendation. I was just curious from Sudarshan, your perspective, how you thought about the process changing as students and teachers and yourself might develop relationships differently. Is that okay? This has to be the virtual audience.
Yeah,
if
I
my
can
volume's
actually
okay.
hear you. So I hope I'm audible. But to just answer your question, Stephen, I feel that, while we were there in person, things were a lot easier. We could attend assemblies in person. We could go to the sports field in person. We could interact with students while they were engaged in even practices for dramatics or debates, etc. Now that has become a bit of a challenge because they're doing all this virtually and they're not doing that in a place where you can attend that. So what I do tell my students is, invite me to your events, even if it's just a practice session where I'm a mere bystander in the background in a virtual world, observing what they do. I encourage teachers to do the same. And what Namita said is so true, that if the moment you start making a student your partner in the journey, I think then the effort becomes much less on both sides. And I do that as a specific example. I'd like to share that, when I create a school profile and update it annually, I share it with at least the 12th graders first, because they are the directly impacted batch. And I incorporate all their suggestions as long as I'm able to justify why I'm doing what I'm doing, and they are able to justify why they're recommending that change. After that, I share it with the faculty and finalize it. So I think that's another thing, other than what Namita just said about creating deadlines together. I think that again is something that all of us are working towards. So this year, all of us, teachers as well as counselors, we've attended as many online assemblies, rehearsals, events that have happened.
And you would attend, actually, Sudarshan, can I ask, you would attend these online sessions, like you would say, hey, join the rehearsal as like a Zoom viewer, is that right?
That's right. So when the students, there are some students who feel comfortable doing it in person at people's homes. Some people are doing it virtually. So we recently had inter-house dramatics, and there were a lot of rehearsals for that. And, behind the scenes, you always learn much more than the actual event, because that's where all the bloopers happen. So earlier when we were doing it in person, the kids would record a blooper and play it at the end of the event. And so I just say, make me part of your bloopers. I just want to see what you fellows do for fun. And they are actually quite all right. They're not mindful once they let their guard down, not mindful at all of somebody like me watching them in the background. So, and it's not like I make myself available every single time. That's just not possible because these kids are working till very late hours. But I just pop in and out as I feel like, because I have the invite with me. And I think that is one way in which we can remain relevant. And I think it's so important to remain relevant, right? For instance, when the student counselors asked, other than the core subjects, which period would you like to include in your timetable? And the only period they wanted was the career counseling period. I felt so honored, really. And I feel like it's important, right? The kids need to know that we are on their side, we're advocating for them, we teach them how to advocate for themselves. And so I think these are some ways. And I think the other part which I'd really like to focus on is progress meetings. So, going back to your question, Stephen, about how do you make teachers' recommendations relevant in this virtual world? So we do have virtual progress meetings where teachers meet, all the subject teachers teaching the same cohort meet and discuss what they've liked, not liked, how they worked through difficult situations with a student, and we attend that session. So we are invited to attend that session. I make copious notes all the way from grade 8 onwards. So these sessions happen for every single student across the school. So from grade 8 onwards, I have, we make notes, and I think CL4 comes in super handy, where you create a database on the student. Teachers, also it's important for teachers to see how other teachers react, right? For instance, if my favorite subject is math and somebody, the math teacher says some awesome things about me in the progress meeting, but the history teacher really cuts me down to size, the teachers know that this kid is not so bad after all. There are some strengths this kid has. So I think these are a few things which really help put together a meaningful recommendation. And last but not least are, these best practices recommendation work webinars that we hosted at our school. Mary from Notre Dame hosted one for our teachers. And recently, Amber, Andrew, and Pranav have a series of recommendation writing best practices webinars, which have been amazing. So I've just shared that with my teachers to attend at their convenience. So I think that's another advantage of the virtual world, right? So thanks for asking me that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I just 2 notes there. One is that I love, Sudarshan, that you are hopping into the blooper rules for your students. I feel like that. I think, I grew up in the US, but I think I met my guidance counselor once across 3 years, and certainly they never came to any of my rehearsals. So I think that shows a true dedication. And I think that is actually a really good transition, what you just said at the end about sharing resources across different schools, different people that go beyond the bounds of your institution. And that's the second part we want to focus in on, which is about what are the new opportunities that are created by being virtual first, or at least having a virtual component of what you're doing. And so I want to think about this a bit more, and I can open this up. Perhaps I'll first open this to Namratha. I'm curious to hear, what are some new opportunities that you've seen that have been created because of the mixed virtual in person or purely virtual setting that you now work in?
So Stephen, one of the things that really strikes me is the collaboration among schools here. I mean, before we were constrained by geography. If a school did an event in Mumbai, typically other schools in Mumbai would be invited, whether it's like just a university fair or whether it's a letter recommendation writing workshop, or just visit by a certain group of universities that would come to our city and visit us. And we would typically just get other schools in our vicinity to join in or invite their students. But the virtual world has completely changed that now. I mean, just about 6 weeks ago, I attended a applying to medicine panel, which there was like the Don Bosco School, the Manthan School, the Legacy School, and AIS, and they had representatives from St. Andrews, Manipal University, Charles University in Prague, St. George's, American University of Antigua, RCSI in Ireland, and University of Queensland. And everybody was on this webinar. Anyone who was interested in learning about applying to medicine globally, or even students who wanted to apply for medicine themselves. So this kind of collaboration that is now no longer constrained by geography is, I think, a certain benefit that is going to remain after the pandemic. I think there's ample opportunities for us to collaborate, among schools in not even just within India, but across India as well. And I mean, this webinar really sticks in my mind because there were obviously very many different time zones involved, and people in Europe and in North America were up at very early in the morning, with their cups of coffee and talking about medical admissions, which was very interesting and a very, very useful webinar. And what they did after that was also had breakout rooms. So if anybody wanted to really learn about a specific university or a process, you could do that. So it was a very, very useful session. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that moving forward. And the other thing is that, I want to talk about one of the students that I worked with in this past admission cycle. He was admitted to NYU Abu Dhabi on full aid. He's from a small town in India called Nanded. And he actually said, because I interviewed him on a panel with a bunch of other students, and he actually said to us that because of the online world, I got so many opportunities for profile development. Otherwise, in the town that I'm at, there is no MUN. There is no opportunity for me to collaborate with other schools and other students. And I'm just going to tell you about some of the really interesting things that he did. So he participated in an online InSpirit AI program. And through that, he was able to use machine learning to identify the origins of various strains of the COVID virus. And he said that he was able to write articles and publish them on the Medium. And it was a lot easier in this online world. he actually participated and organized a virtual MUN, which he said, prior to that, in his town, there was no access to MUN because he could have just done it within a school, but it wasn't something that was very easily accessible. So having this online world, and obviously students there was no option to do it just within your school, physically in your school. People were very open-minded. He even said that he learned to play the guitar and recorded himself doing performances online on Zoom, which, again, not something that you would have thought about doing if you were in person. And the other amazing thing that he did is he taught women in underdeserved areas how to use digital platforms to make money by selling their handmade goods. So again, because more people were online, he was really able to do all these different profile development opportunities. And I think they're going to be here to stay. And it's really going to benefit students that aren't necessarily in an environment or or have access to these activities in their own school.
I think, I quite agree with you, Namita. I must tell you that Sameer from Legacy is here in the room with us. So a big shout out to Sameer for organizing that amazing medical school collaborative webinar. I think it was really helpful for all.
Agree.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Session.
Yeah. I just wanted to add to this, and then maybe we can hear from Mrs. Shukla about some new opportunities. I mean, we've been doing career fair every year, but obviously it always was in person. But this year we did an online career fair, and the response was amazing. So we had, just like Namita said, people from different parts of the world, so Europe, US. So this time we had presenters from all over the world. And I think, and because we had so many presenters, we were able to really make smaller groups in the career fair. And we could offer so many different options for students. So none of the room was more than 20 students. So I think it really created that amazing collaborative experience, A, and B, we did a survey later and students felt that this was much more impactful than the in-person career fairs, right? Other than that, the way it helped us is that a lot of logistical challenges were not there, right? Because if it is in person, we would have to run behind the IT people, we would have to run behind the PMS staff, and there's so many logistical challenges, which was just like, I just had to learn how to do the Zoom, right? And we just signed up with one platform, that's it. And we didn't need anybody. It was just Tiffany, me, and Minal, 3 of us who did everything that we would probably have had 20 people do it for us. So I think these opportunities are here to stay, and we've made really good use of the whole virtual mentorship.
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's a really interesting point, that it's just the barrier, it sounds like, for you to even do an event is just so much lower, that you're like, you know what, let's do an event because I just have a Zoom account, and Shilpa, you're the queen of Zoom, so, you should be.
All of us are by now.
Yeah, all of us. Many. And kings, yes, exactly. The kings are in the audience as well. But I think that's actually really valuable, and I hope that stays, to both of your points around not only making it easier for you, the counselor, to create something like this, but also for the student who's not in the tier 1 city, not even in the tier 2 city, who says, hey, I want to get access to these opportunities that my peers that I'm maybe competing with have, and I want to be able to compete on a level playing field. And I think that's really, really beautiful. I'm curious. So I don't know if you want to respond to that.
No, I just wanted to add one more point. I think even parent meetings were great in the online world. Amazing. I mean, otherwise we would have parents not show up for our meetings at times. I mean, or we would just keep waiting for parents, like Indian Standard Time. I think that was like a
And
like
Mumbai Standard Time, that's even scarier.
I mean, I'm not sure how many of you would agree, but parent meetings were smooth. Yeah. I mean, anything else you would like to add, Mrs. Shukla?
Oh, absolutely, Shilpa. I think not only, the other end of the spectrum of parents not showing up was the other end, who was super enthusiastic and who refused to leave your office and talked about,
wow.
their siblings and
Shots
their aunts
fired.
and uncles and for a half an hour meeting, it would go into a 1 hour, 45-minute meeting, and there'd be like a queue outside your office, which you'd be oblivious of. I think we have managed that beautifully online. I couldn't agree more with you, Shilpa. I think not only has the meeting become efficient, but also minuting the meeting has become a little more streamlined, has become more efficient. So if you have a half an hour meeting and you leave 15 minutes to minute what you said, you have a record. So I think these online, also, I think a bit of confidentiality remains, where nobody's like peeking into your room or office or trying to overhear what the conversation was about, etc. And there's no pressure. So if a student wanted to share their experience, they wouldn't hesitate doing it online. Even with or without the parent, so here again there's a bit of where if a parent is present in a meeting, a student hesitates to tell you something just like they would in person, and then it's strengthening the student to be able to advocate and accept whatever the issue is and then move on from them. I think that's really streamlined. The other thing I find as a school, what really worked for me is the point that Shilpa made of managing logistics in a school, which classroom is empty, which time is available, which period should we call so and so in, all that is just ironed out. So now what we did was I would just send a sheet and ask students to fill in their appointment slots and honor that. So nobody would remove anybody else's name, and we would honor that. And the other thing we did was, especially during open admissions of IG, IB, etc., there were so many questions which was absolutely identical. And I would be sitting on the phone in the morning just answering the same question. So what we did was open office hours once a week for an hour. And anybody from any class, any division, any parent, any student could just walk in to the Zoom meeting and ask a question. So there was no agenda. I would just be there, our team would just be there, and we just answer questions. And then what we did, we went a step further after that. We realized that we were again answering the same questions over 3 sessions. So we have involved a team of students who were very interested in artificial intelligence modeling. And we are creating a model of using AI to create an FAQ sheet for us to reach out to anytime there's a problem. So here, I think, wouldn't have happened if we were not in a virtual world. So many pros here. I think I just needed to point that out. And students have an opportunity then to demonstrate their prowess in technology, right? Which is amazing too.
Absolutely. And I think, Sarsha, I like how part of the nice thing of the virtual world is that people don't remove other people's times. It seems like a very important baseline. So I want to leave some time for questions. I know there are some questions or comments in the chat. I have no idea what those are, as I don't have the chat open, but I assume they're very thoughtful, and would love to get to some of them and some in the room as well. So I'm going to ask a final question, combine a couple of things here. I'm curious for each of you, if you could talk about one best practice that you plan to take forward, when more in-person school resumes. What is that one thing you want to take forward? And then we'll transition to some questions. And I'll start with Namita. I think if you would be up for the first go at it.
I think my best practice is just using technology to our advantage. We've all spoken about it, having project management tools to manage our students in a better way. CAlpha, for example, is the tool that we use, and it just streamlines processes, and you really have an overview of the student. There's no back and forth, emailing of, say, college lists and all of that. So just using technology to our advantage, and like how Shilpa said, using platforms like Zoom or AirMeet to meet students, to create useful interactions that are going to benefit students, to help make them choose the best fit universities, help them really engage with universities, engage with other peers, and make this process a lot easier. I think investing in technology in the right ways is a best practice that is important in the online world and the offline world, and something that we're all going to continue to do even after schools open and we resume the face-to-face interaction, which is also necessary, I think.
Absolutely. So use the tech, find the tech, Yeah, I think that's
take advantage of the tech.
Take advantage of the tech. Yes, I can attest to that. Shilpa, past you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so because of the whole virtual world, what I tried doing this year was I created special focus groups, within our student community, because I did not want, I was really mindful of them being on Zoom or being online. So I created smaller groups like UK focused groups, US focused groups, Meds focused groups, and I only did presentations for them so that the other students who were not involved had the rest time. And I think I would like to continue doing this. And I know in some schools administration would not support, but I know that this was a very, very helpful tool. And I think we can convince our administration that it's important. And also a lot of these information giving sessions can be done online, even in future, right? So thinking about how you want to use your time in a hybrid model, I think we really need to think about steps that we can, and yes, using tech tools like Namita said, I think they were really a boon.
Absolutely. Sudarshan, are there any kind of one takeaway that you would want to bring forward?
Sure, Stephen. I think I'll definitely continue with the online platform for common sessions across grades. Because logistically for us to plan that in one hall, we can't seat more than 200. And here I've had more than 500 attend a session. So, that is definitely here to stay. I also feel parent-teacher meetings and individual appointments on, based on convenience, mutual convenience. So you don't have to restrict yourself to school hours, but you can, within the normalcy of working hours, make sure that you're available and parents are available at that time, because once parents start going back to work in person, that's going to become a little challenging as well. So just making yourself available with flexible hours virtually is going to be great. I think even in our school, I don't think our faculty meetings will go back in person. All of them.
Wow.
Maybe some will, but not all, department wise. I think they've been more productive going virtual. And Stephen, with your permission, there's a question.
Please.
May I read it out, please? It's from Ajay, and it says, in the virtual world, when activities are limited, sports are almost none. Students from residential schools are missing out the core strength of their high school life. This is affecting their university admissions. Are universities really making a note of these new challenges and reviewing applications? What are the reflections and admissions and impact of COVID on your student profile? So I think this is to anyone in the audience who is from the university side. If they can answer that, would be great. Otherwise, any one of us can take a...
Come, Samir.
Yeah. So you can take my spot, please.
Thank you, Sudarshan. I'm not from the university side, but I did try to incorporate certain practices which might help. And I think, the old common proverb, necessity is the mother of invention. We had a sports captain who's been virtual sports captain in the history of, school years. But what we came up with the ideas is that the students who were playing sports, how can they do it virtually? So a student who was doing taekwondo and training and is an international player, he started coaching children in his own community. And he continued doing that. We started something called Stepathon. We started something called Rest a While, Strive the Mile, where we engage parents, children, teachers, to get on a common app, Strava, and sort of do every day certain number of steps. And that contributes towards, so this all came with children, right? So, and mental health and physical fitness were two correlated issues which were being talked about. And students have been able to write beautiful stories of resilience and how they've been able to sort of overcome. So I think everybody on the panel said, where there are infinite challenges, please start seeing infinite possibilities. I mean, there are immense possibilities, and we are going to the season 2 of Rest a While, Strive the Mile. For 1 month, we will all do a stepathon, runathon, and we even involved the youngest child was about 3.5 years old, and the eldest participant was 96-year-old grandmother, who just had to stand at her own feet and just do 10 steps a day. So the idea is, how are you engaging children in a dialogue of being more creative on optimizing technology to create opportunities for themselves? That's it.
I mean, coming back to technology, I feel we've all evolved so much with technology, right? I mean, I don't think I would have ever made a Google website. And when I see myself doing it, I'm like, wow. Yeah, you know.
Queen of Zoom.
Not
Not just
more,
sorry.
much
Queen,
more beyond that.
Queen of Google products in our midst.
There's one more question from Teji, which says, during Zoom meetings, how have you reduced the risk of being recorded on another device? May I take that question, please?
Please.
So actually, my parents have openly told me we're recording, and I'm all right with it, because what we're sharing is not rocket science. It's not something we've invented. It's not our copyright. We are learning from various sources, and I tell them that it's your child, your insecurity, your inability to take notes. I respect that, and as long as they let me know they're recording it, I'm absolutely okay with that. So I hope that's helpful, Teji. And please, Ajay has some amazing suggestions and ideas that he shared. Please unmute yourself and share. And Teji, do feel free to unmute and ask if this hasn't been a satisfactory answer.
Thank you, Sudarshana ma'am, for giving this opportunity. Yes, definitely with COVID, it has given us an opportunity to innovate with a residential school like Doon. Students who thrive on sports, activities, creativity, they have gone online and they have innovated projects like the Nest Society, the Space Settlement Program, the MUNs, the social projects, like they would develop products and then help the underprivileged people and students to make their living. So there were various such examples of students doing these kind of things. And we also keep an open link, like Sudarshan ma'am said. We would keep an open link for 2-3 hours in the morning where they would walk into our office just like an office environment. And after school, they will also have an open link, given dedicated time slots where they could come and meet us and interact. So those kind of things have been done. Weekly interaction, having a dedicated career counseling program gives you an opportunity to interact with them on a weekly basis, to run your curriculum and give those dedicated sessions on personal statements, applications, and many other. But we also use something like Google Classroom, where we will make a dedicated classroom for Oxbridge applications, medical aspirants, or UK or US applicants. And then those resources are always there. The scholarships, University of Toronto, Leicester B, or International Scholar, UBC or York, any scholarship nominations and previous resources are shared in those classrooms so that the new students could take help. We also share sample applications of previous successful admissions without sharing their personal details. So students get an idea how these students have designed their applications and how we can be innovative. And I think the students are the first ones who are most innovative in these times. And we as counselors and teachers have been learning from them. But it's great to learn from all of you here. Thank you so much. Wonderful to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I open it now to other people in the audience physically. We have Devesh here. Okay, Devesh, why don't you go ahead?
So first of all, thank you all the expert panelists, Sudarshana ma'am, Namita, Shilpa, and of course Stephen. So we just heard what all things worked out. Now I just want to know what are some of, we have been experimenting for the last 18 months. What are some, in your experience, what are some of the things that did not work out? Would you like to share something about what did not work out?
I could even take a pass on this because we run a virtual program. One thing that I found is you have to come to students where they use tech, not where you use tech. So one example is we use Slack internally, and we thought, oh, we'll introduce all of our high school students to Slack. And it was terrible. No one used it. And then we started a Discord server, and it's amazing, and everyone is on it. And Discord and Slack are very similar platforms, frankly. But it was clear that we had kind of in our own hubris thought that, oh, the thing that we use is going to be best, and we hadn't taken advantage of the ability of the students to identify what they wanted to use. So that's just one thing that I've experienced. I'm curious for the other panelists.
can't think of anything, but yeah, we did evolve a lot while taking our session. So I don't remember of something that did not work out completely, but yes, I know that we realized that there were challenges in the way we were leading our sessions. So we had to evolve ourselves in the way we were using tech, because initially it was actually only Zoom, but then we kind of evolved using so many other tech tools that we didn't even know about. So I think not really challenges, but yeah, we grew up with the children, and I would agree with Stephen, but that we have to keep students at the center of how we are planning our classes. That was definitely a challenge initially.
So may I add to Devesh's question? I just feel that one thing I have missed, and I really regret that for the last 18 months, is not seeing my students eye to eye, person to person, being there around, just watching their eyes move, their bodies, giving a kind of a message to you saying, okay, happening, not happening. You know, these cues when you just see the top torso are just not there. Shuffling of your feet, so many things. I miss that. I really am a proponent of body language. And in fact, I talk about that a lot in my classes. When I first enter a class, we talk about, you know, different ways of communication, body language being my favorite. And we do a little lesson on nonverbal communication, body language with all the students. So I think that's my biggest peeve during these months.
Sounds like
just continue from what Sudarshana said. I completely agree with her. I think, you know, at the end of the day, this college applications, college process, it's a human process. I mean, it's about two people connecting, a college connecting with you and then admitting you, or like a counselor connecting with you. And yes, you know, when someone's sitting in front of you, you can tell by their facial expressions whether the last class was really tiring, or whether they're exhausted, or whether they're having a bad day. You can just say, you know, by the way they slump their shoulders, or the way they just kind of just, you know, sit down in a very tiresome way. And then you kind of maneuver your counseling according to that. Exactly what Sudarshana said, that's something that we miss out on. You know, you try to do that in the virtual world, but not everyone has their camera on, and not always is there enough time to really you know, connect in that way outside of literally just kind of getting it done, or you know, working on a particular aspect of the application. So I completely agree with you, Sudarshan. That's exactly what I thought about when Devesh asked that question. I mean, yeah, we miss out on facial expressions, on cues that tell us how to kind of manage that next 40 minutes or an hour with that student, which we obviously have had in the past when they're sitting right in front of you in an office.
Please.
Yeah, so I really feel I'm personally, as a counselor, facing this challenge with my students. You know, they are virtually exhausted. And we can do only so much. I mean, there are brilliant ideas that, you know, Samir shared, all of you shared, and what we all are just trying to do. But I don't know whether this is thriving or this is just survival. I don't know. The point is that there is exhaustion in me as a counselor, everything virtually, and so I feel that with my students as well. And so how do we really, I just keep thinking myself that what can I do to just maximize the impact on my students and not just flooding them with a lot of online sessions. I know there's a lot that I can do, but still thinking my own self that what is the best that I can do in lesser virtual time and being more effective. So I would love to listen to all of you on that.
Yeah, I created, and other than that, a lot of content-based information, I just put it on Cialfo as tasks. I refuse to take any session which is pure content. I said I don't want to exhaust. But one thing that really worked with my students was Kahoot quiz. I don't know how many of you did that. I would tell the students, okay, we are doing a Kahoot on UK admission process tomorrow. So the students, whoever were interested in the UK, would read up and come, and the next day our 80 minutes was just Kahoot. Fantastic. I mean, everybody was always so engaged, you know, because it's obviously very competitive and it has this interesting music coming up and you know, the winning ladder and all of that. So, you know, our kids enjoy competition sometimes, I feel. So that really worked very well. I mean, I don't know if you guys have tried Kahoot, but It really works well. I know that there are many others. There's Mentimeter also, which does these kind of things. But yes, doing something like this really helped. But I would love to hear from Namita and Sudarshana.
So, one of the things that I feel like, exactly like you said, the content sessions, before we'd be like, oh, everybody applying to the UK, let's meet in a room together. Everybody applying to the US, let's get together. All of that stuff can be video recorded and put on the platform that you're using that students can then access at their convenience. So if somebody's very tired when we're going through that whole, how do you fill out a UCAS form session, they can just access it at their convenience. So you're giving them the opportunity to choose when to do it, which I think is also, which is very useful, because somebody might be experiencing that online fatigue one day and doesn't want to enroll or like join a session where you're discussing something, but the option for them to access that later, rather than call up friends and be like, hey, I missed the session, what do I do, is I think very forward. It's something that is impactful. Let's put it that way. I think that virtual fatigue is something that we are all feeling in some capacity, but unfortunately, the situation is such that there's really nothing you can do about it. You can't. I mean, certain schools are allowing, I think, grade 12 students to meet in smaller groups. So perhaps doing that can help the complete online fatigue. But other than that, just using resources and giving them the opportunity to choose when they do what, that's very empowering.
I think we have someone from the audience who wants to share something.
Gamification is one way where students.
No, I just
closer.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
So I'm saying gamification is one way where children learn best. So I have tried Nearpod. Yeah. So that is also a fantastic way where, yeah. So it's also a nice way where polls are integrated and everything is integrated. So for grade 9, 8 and 9, it really worked wonders.
Yeah. Just the king or queen of tech, not the god of tech. That's right. That's right.
But to come to your point, Khushbu, I think we are in between survival and thriving, and we still don't know. I mean, it's just a world of unknown right now. We are all evolving and we are all waiting for something, for some definitive something.
Right. But I think it is interesting that certainly I think we'd all agree that there's some limiting factors to the virtual world, and I think many people who are here in person are saying, oh, it's so nice, that we're able to be here in person. And then I'm sure people who are online also like, it's so nice I don't have to go to Delhi. Yeah. And, it's lovely. But there's something I think interesting that, to loop back to what we were saying before, like, well, we are learning some things that we hope to take forward. And it's not just as if this is a net worse. Yeah. It's that in some ways it's definitely worse, but in some ways actually it seems like it's better. Yeah.
In fact, when there is a conversation happening that schools will open and all of that. So when I was talking to my grade 12s, I was asking them that, how do you feel like, or what do you feel now that there's conversation about coming back to school? They're like, we prefer having our lessons online, but we would like to go to school to meet our friends.
Yeah,
So I think the students have also gotten a bit used to doing certain things online. So I have a feeling that we will pretty much have something going on forever.
Going online forever.
In some capacity.
In some capacity.
In some capacity, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we have time for probably one more question. I don't know if there's any other questions.
I think, we just have 1 minute. Yeah.
Please.
Rather than a question, I want to share something. I think I'm one of those who has benefited the most out of this virtual, thing. I just graduated with the IC3 yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And so are many of us, I think, in the room as well. And we had kind of built in a community which has connected virtually because of the fact that we did the entire course virtually. And this WhatsApp group that has been created is actually serving us in a big way. Any and every question related to any child
WhatsApp
getting an
groups.
admission somewhere is thrown in the group, and you get ample suggestions up there. So I think our group has been one that has benefited the most out of this.
Just before our session, I mentioned the same WhatsApp group to Stephen, and he's like, really? Can a WhatsApp group can also help? And he was like, can you show me one of the groups?
Yeah, and you get messages on that day in and day out, and then it gives you ideas again. So, okay, yeah, exactly. And I know if I can propose, I mean, the way Ganesh would say the L2 concept, if you could just extend the counseling libraries and bring in more resources from everywhere. I mean, and if we could make it, to maybe a website or something wherein all the resources from all sources are put in there, that's going to help us big way. So that's what we're looking forward to now.
I had a unique challenge last year, came September, and the counselor said, oh my God, I can't do this. She walked out. I mean, she had personal challenge. She said she cannot just manage Human Connect online. And here I was with the vice principal's designation, and they said, like, Shilpa has been in similar situation, but she's a superwoman, and men don't have superwoman powers, trust me on that. And suddenly I have 80 kids to manage. Trust me, Monday to Friday used to be school tasks. Evening 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. is kids' time. And Saturday, Sundays, all dedicated to them. So, I mean, I could just do it because it was virtual. In physical space, I wouldn't have imagined doing it at all. So I think there are infinite possibilities. I mean, the power of collaboration, this medical school, we did a summer opportunity fair that 1,800 children from all 7 different continents came up with no cost to anybody, no partners cost, nothing. I mean, you were also one of the participants in that, right? So I think there are immense possibilities of collaboration. Let's get together, the power of collectivism, and then there is a lot we can do together and a lot we can do change. Thank you.
Let's have a school's virtual exhibit instead of having universities, right? Universities should come and meet us. We are tired of meeting with the universities.
Amazing. Well, I think we can wrap up on that. Thank you so much to everyone. I think there's a lot clearly that the virtual world has taken, but a lot that's actually given to us in terms of perspective and how we now think about what is good and what we can do in the future. I want to give a really big thank you to all of our panelists who put in a lot of time to think through this. Namita, Sudarshana, Shilpa, thank you so much. And thank you for the audience for being, I think, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th panelist as well. So thank you, everyone.
And I think that this virtual world also made us closer more. We learned to collaborate more in this virtual world. So I think that was a bigger takeaway.
That was the aha moment for us. So whatsoever done virtually, meeting in person, but the only restriction was the mask. So otherwise it was a wonderful experience meeting in person.
I would say if it was virtual, the food I would be eating would be much worse. So certainly there are some benefits. But thank you everyone for being here, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you everyone.